Hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to be speaking at this very significant event, and I thank the organisers for doing such a good job with establishing it. So firstly, I would like to start by talking about why a track-to diplomacy approach is particularly suitable to addressing the issue of the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Then I will move on to discuss what some of the challenges are to such an approach and how they can be dealt with. So a track-to approach is important in relation to the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula for a number of reasons. First, the challenge of peaceful reunification is immense, and it cannot be dealt with exclusively at an official level. There are many issues that need to be discussed, prepared for, and overcome when it comes to reunification, including security issues, economic issues, social issues, all of which will be heavily impacted by reunification. In order to ensure that it is a peaceful process, reunification, there needs to be a great deal of deliberation and preparation, and this would ideally be carried out at both track 1 and track 2 levels. Secondly, track 1 diplomatic approaches with North Korea have largely been unsuccessful. They have a lot of limitations, whether they be carried out bilaterally in the summit meetings or multilaterally in the six-party talks. And this is largely because at the track 1 level, the governments involved have often, their positions have often been kind of shaped by their domestic constituents and also narrowly defined national interests. And it's easier to avoid such problems or pitfalls at the track 2 level, where participants do not have to adhere to any particular policy line and therefore can think more creatively and also be more outspoken. So in other words, track 2 can help to break through some of the constraints or barriers that official diplomacy can sometimes place on talks. And thirdly, when the Korean Peninsula was divided, as you've heard today, it was not just two governments that were divided, but whole societies as well. Therefore, it's important that we approach the matter of reunification from both a government and a kind of non-government or non-official level where society can be involved as well. So next, I'd like to talk about what I think are some of the challenges and issues that are inherent to the track 2 process and what sort of practices can help us to overcome them. I mentioned before that one of the merits of track 2 diplomacy is that there's often less constraints than you would see at the track 1 level. This means that participants in track 2 diplomacy often, seek to maintain a kind of independence from track 1 diplomats and to guard that independence. At the same time, though, there is the contradictory issue of also needing to influence government officials at the track 1 level. So there's a challenge of deciding how much to involve or to engage with track 1 diplomats or government officials, and also ultimately how you're going to influence them to approach reunification in a peaceful way. A second challenge is deciding on a clear objective for the track 2 discussions. For example, is the objective to manage tensions between North Korea and the other governments involved at the track 1 level in the region, or how to resolve such problems, or to transform the situation on the Korean Peninsula? So the freedoms that are associated with being a track 1 participant can sometimes result in a lack of rigor in the track 2 process, where there may be no clearly defined objectives. And the third and final challenge that I'd like to raise is the issue of how you can measure or evaluate the impact of a track 2 dialogue. This is connected to the previous point in the sense that it helps to decide on how your outcomes can be measured or assessed before the Track 2 process begins. So for example, will the Track 2 participants create a discussion paper or a policy brief after the Track 2 dialogue? And will that paper be considered successful if it's read by government officials, or if it's acted on by government officials, in order for it to be considered successful? So in conclusion, there are certainly many merits to the Track 2 process in dealing with a matter as difficult but also as important as the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. But in order for the Track 2 process to be very successful, it's important to have a set of clearly defined objectives and also a plan for how those objectives will be assessed and monitored. So thank you very much for listening.